I'm Emma Louise Coffey and welcome to The Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's episode, Emer Kennedy explains how to manage the transition of calves to once-a-day feeding.
Generally maybe 6 to 7 weeks in when calves start to get sick, and that's probably because there's been such a throughput of cows and calves through the calving area at this stage. So again, just to recap on the very basic principles, the colostrum 1-2-3 rule: first milking within 2 hours of birth and to feed 3 litres, and then hygiene, making sure that the sheds, that any of the feeding equipment and any of the housing facilities are kept really clean.
Once-a-day milking is now an option. Can you go through the management of that and the implications on labour?
So I guess if we look at feeding even before, just to recap small bit, the calf should be on about 6 litres of milk, or a good quality milk replacer at this stage. Once a day feeding is a great option for farmers. It does reduce labour. Any of the experiments that we've done, we have found that there's absolutely no difference between once a day and twice a day feeding in terms of the calf's growth rate. The one thing to remember is that the calves need to be at least 3 to 4 weeks of age before you put them on once a day, and that's for a number of reasons. One is that the calf's abomasum is too small to handle a large volume of milk, so that's 6 litres that we're talking about before they reach that age. And the second then is that their rumen isn't fully developed, so they can't take the nutrients from the concentrate that they're eating, and they can't have a high enough intake of concentrate to sustain them. So then when it comes to actual once a day, there's no problem. Like any of the experiments that we've done, we have changed them straight from feeding the 6 litres of milk twice a day and just fed it in one feed. Consistency is one of the key things, that you're feeding at the same time every day, so they have that 24 hours to digest it. But just because you feed the calves once a day does not mean that you only check them once a day. You need to go back a second time and check them thoroughly and feed them their concentrate on that second visit, because again you're trying to pick out any calves that may be sick and pick them up quickly. Also, you will need a good supply of fresh running water and the concentrate, as we said, available with them.
And you mentioned the water and concentrate. When should we be looking at introducing concentrate, and what level are they eating at this stage?
So really, concentrate and water should be offered to the calves from a week of age. The concentrate, start them off on a coarse ration or a muesli type one. It smells nice, it looks nice, but you're only really giving them a handful each, not expecting you to fill the troughs and let them slobber all over it and waste it. Ideally, you just want a little bit there for them to know that they get a taste of it, so that they can increase their intake over time, because our aim is that when we get to weaning, we want them eating at least a kilo of concentrate. And you'll find that because they're growing, their intake is also increasing, so they're going to turn to the concentrate as well. On the concentrate, there's no problem changing over to pellets after a few weeks. Just make the transition between them. Maybe mix the nuts or the pellets with the coarse ration for a couple of days, just to make the transition smooth. But again, you will need fresh water available with the cow or with the calves while they're given the concentrate to aid digestion.
And in turns then, another labour saving tool farmers have imposed is getting calves outdoors early. What have you seen in terms of getting calves out, and what would your top tips be for farmers?
I actually love putting calves out to grass early, but so we have looked at many different ages in Moore Park, and I guess the optimum age we found was about 4 to 5 weeks of age. So for example, if you're going once a day, you might put them on once a day for a week or so before you put them out, and then put them out to grass after that. The key thing to look for when you're putting them out is the weather. So you need to check it and make sure that you have a good week ahead of you. So a nice dry cold week is ideal. A wet cold week is a disaster. Also, when you put them out, you'll need to put shelter out into the paddocks with them. So maybe pick a shelter paddock that has high hedges, or maybe there's walls or that around it. So typically what we would do is we had these kind of homemade shelters, if you like, and we had a little floor on them to keep them up, because what you'll find with calves is when they go into an area, they're going to poach it, and then they get tired and they lie down. And you don't want them lying on a damp kind of surface, because they're only going to get chills and that from it. So we'd put 2 of these shelters into the paddock in a V, and maybe face them like against the wall or the hedge or whatever, so that there's protection from the wind in any direction. We found from the experiments that we've done that you do actually need overhead shelter, because, for example, we used straw bales in an X or a cross shape, and where they didn't have the overhead shelter, they just didn't do as well. Their weight gain was a lot poorer. But as you said, it is a big labour saver, because it reduces the amount of time that you're going to spend cleaning out houses. But also there's additional advantages in that when you get some of the calves out of the house, you're actually reducing the burden in the house. So you're potentially keeping the calves, the younger calves in the house, that bit healthier.
And I guess it's important if farmers are considering housing cows outdoors, it's important they have a mechanism to transport the milk to the calves rather than carrying it. So finally, Emer, if we consider weaning, and what are your recommendations for weaning calves?
So when it comes to weaning, all research would show that gradual weaning is best. Once you gradually wean the calves over a period of 7 to 10 days, the post-weaning check is a lot less, and they're going to do better in the post-weaning period. So from 7 to 10 days, I'd start cutting down the milk, reducing it down, and when you wean them, ideally wean them based on weight. So maybe for a Holstein Friesian calf about 90 kilos, or it's about 15-16% of their mature body weight that you're weaning them at. Another good idea is that for the younger born calves, that you might wean those at a slightly heavier weight. So then, like during the summer, you're essentially dealing with a very uniform group of calves, and they're a lot easier to manage. You might have less groups during the grazing period then.
And for farmers who aren't weighing their calves, what is the recommendation for them for weaning?
In terms of time, it's probably, somewhere 10, 11 weeks that it's taken to get the calves to that weight. So they're pretty big, well-grown calves by the time it comes to weaning. But it stands to them, because all the work that we have done here, we have seen time and time again that the way that we treat the calves in the pre-weaning period influences their weight gain post-weaning. And for example, in one of the experiments that we did, calves that we weaned at this target weight of 90 to 100 kilos for your Holstein Friesian calves, they were the only calves that hit their 6-month target of 30% of their mature body weight.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast. My thanks to Emer Kennedy for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and for more information, go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.